The Woman in the Mirror. In October 2013, Karen, a young college student from Illinois, was eagerly anticipating the Halloween party organized by her friends. She had spent weeks planning her ghost bride costume, complete with a tattered dress and eerie makeup that made her face pale, with deep, dark eyes. Before heading out, she decided to take some pictures to capture the dark look. The bathroom where she was getting ready was small, with dim lights that seemed to flicker slightly, creating moving shadows on the walls. Candles had been lit to create a spooky atmosphere, and the scent of wax mixed with the October night chill filled the room. While taking mirror selfies, something in one of the pictures made her pause. In the background, there was a figure, too distinct and sharp to be a reflection. It was a woman, with a cadaverous complexion, wearing an old black dress, her eyes sunken as if empty. The woman appeared to be standing right behind Karen, with a cold, piercing expression. Confused, Karen looked around the bathroom, but there was no one there. Fear took hold of her, but she chose to ignore it, thinking it was a trick of the light. At the party, she showed the picture to her friends. Everyone fell silent, with expressions of pure terror as they looked at the image. The figure in the mirror didn't appear to be just a reflection, but something that was actually there, watching Karen. When she returned home, her night was filled with nightmares in which the same woman from the mirror appeared, whispering in an incomprehensible language, her eyes overflowing with hatred. In one of these dreams, the woman drew closer and finally touched Karen's shoulder, her touch icy and paralyzing. In the days that followed, Karen discovered that the house she lived in had a dark history. Decades ago, a woman named Eleanor had been murdered in the bathroom, right in front of that same mirror. She had died there, brutally, while looking at her own reflection. Disturbed and haunted by these events, Karen moved out weeks later. But even after leaving, whenever she passes by a mirror, she sometimes glimpses that same dark figure with a severe gaze, as if Eleanor had bound herself to her forever. At night, Karen still dreams of Eleanor, whispering, "I am where you are, and I will never leave," the doll of the basement. In 2005, the Weston family, thrilled about their new home in rural Texas, decided to explore every corner of the century-old place, which was full of history and, they said, personality. While investigating the basement, a cold, dark space where the smell of mold and dust prevailed, the children found a porcelain doll among old boxes and furniture. The doll had a cracked face, deep, glassy eyes, and wore a dirty, faded lace dress, as if it hadn't been touched for decades. Its eyes seemed to follow the children wherever they moved, and an eerie chill filled the air. At night, while everyone slept, the sound of footsteps began to echo through the house, coming from the basement. They were light, almost childlike steps, followed by a faint scratching, like nails running across wood. The father initially thought it was an animal, so he went to the basement to investigate. What he saw froze him in terror. The doll was positioned at the foot of the stairs, as if it had climbed up on its own, its eyes now appearing to look directly at him. Not knowing what else to do, he put it back in the far corner of the basement. But the next morning, the doll reappeared on the stairs, this time holding an old piece of paper in its rigid hand. On the paper, written in childish, almost illegible letters, was a warning. "Whoever abandons me will suffer the consequences." Terrified, the family decided to burn it in the backyard. As they set the doll on fire, an agonizing, supernatural scream echoed. The house lights flickered violently, and a cold gust of wind swept through the yard. In the days that followed, the family felt a presence in the house, Objects moved, doors slammed on their own, and the sound of footsteps echoed throughout the house, as if something or someone was still there, furious at having been burned. Eventually, the family moved, leaving the house behind, but rumors say that even today, the haunted doll can still be seen by neighbors, sitting in the basement window, watching and waiting for new victims. The ghost child on the road. On a dark Halloween night in 2010, John Hayes, an experienced truck driver from Ohio, was driving along an isolated road surrounded by dense forests as thick fog blanketed everything around. He knew it wasn't safe to stop, especially on that night. But a strange feeling washed over him, as if he were being watched. Suddenly, in the middle of the road, he saw a sickly-looking child with skin so pale it almost glowed in the dark. The child wore something that looked like an old hospital uniform, her sparse, tangled hair covering part of her face. She stood motionless, with her eyes fixed on the pavement, as if waiting for something or someone. John stopped his truck a few meters away and got out, concerned that the child might be lost or injured. When he called out to her, she slowly lifted her face. Her eyes, black and empty, held no expression, only a profound and incomprehensible void. Without moving otherwise, the child stepped back, disappearing into the fog as if she were a ghost. John felt a chill run down his spine and returned to his truck, certain that something was terribly wrong. Looking in the rearview mirror, he saw the child standing in the middle of the road again, staring directly at him. Days later, while sharing the story in a local bar, he discovered that the road ran through the grounds of an old children's hospital that had burned down in the 1940s. Many children had died, and, they say, their spirits never found rest. Locally, people avoided driving there, especially on Halloween, when the ghost child supposedly appears, waiting for someone to stop. According to the legend, those who dare to follow the child bring a curse upon themselves. John tried to dismiss the story, but in the following weeks he began to hear children's laughter inside the truck when he was alone on the road, and quick glimpses of a child in the rearview mirror haunted him at night. A month later, he was involved in a serious accident, and he swore he saw the child on the road again, moments before the crash. He survived, but since then, he feels that the pale, empty figure watches him from somewhere, waiting for the right moment to take him back to the road that keeps them apart.